Okay, so welcome everybody to Love Letter to Me, Three Powerful Keys to Mending a Broken Heart. This is Valentine's Day 2025, and I am so excited to be here with you and share all of this wonderful information and also just this space of writing a love letter to ourselves. It's something so important for us to be able to do. We actually should be able to do that to ourselves always and not just on Valentine's Day. So, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. We're going to get started. I'm going to just first again say happy Valentine's Day. And really, it's a pleasure to have you here. It's a very momentous moment for me. And great to be sharing this space with Nancy Abramson, who is a wonderful coach in her own right, as well as a dear friend of mine. And I want to thank you, Nancy, for captaining the room. And we are going to get started. We've already found out, I happen to know that Katie is in California, unless she's gone somewhere else without telling me. And Stacy's in with us from Alaska, so that's pretty awesome. We are building a worldwide community of women who want to empower ourselves and each other. And we were just speaking before we started about how important community is. If you've gone through an unhealthy relationship, it's more important than ever, and we will soon find out a bit more why. I'm going to do just a tiny bit of housekeeping. I'm going to remind everybody to turn off your cell phones, to get rid of any distractions. This is time just for you. Some people may be able to stay, might have to skip out. We understand that. Please keep yourself on mute if you're not directly speaking with us. I would love it if you could grab a notepad, some pens, some colored pencils, maybe your favorite drink. And Nancy, if you could put in the chat the love letter PDF. If you have time or a way to print it right now, that's great. It's a document that looks like this. It's a bunch of pages long. You are welcome to print it and work on it straight, or you can just take notes and you can work on it later. But this is going to be for you to keep, and it's going to be our love letter, and we're going to have some fun with it. Okay. So again, let's get started. Let's dive deep in. And today's invitation is to say, dear me, I love you. And if we have been, when we have been in any kind of an unhealthy relationship, whether it's right now or it was even a long time ago, we might have a little trouble saying that to ourselves. We might have to relearn it because inside we do actually know how to say it. We're pretty good at it, as a matter of fact. But we can forget. And that's part of what we're going to talk about is learning why and how we forget and how we can turn that around. So specifically today, we're going to learn three powerful keys to mending our broken hearts. We're going to identify the unhealthy behaviors that harm us and then learn how to stop them in their tracks. We're going to step into healthier relationships by learning how to love ourselves better. That's so important. And then I'm going to offer some easy, gentle, and believe it or not, fun tools, really powerful but fun to lighten the heavy burden of mending our broken hearts because it can be hard to come back out of a difficult relationship. And it's your time. It's your time to come out of it and be joyous and happy, loving yourself and loving anybody else who you choose to let into your life. So let me just keep going. And I'm going to just really quickly introduce myself. My name is Lisa Markovitz. I am a professional vocalist. I usually sing jazz. I do write some of my own music. And basically, if it's good music, I want to sing it. I take that creativity. I've used it in a lot of different ways. I've been a communications professional for many years. The most relevant thing, I think, to what we're looking at right now is that I started and ran my own international foundation in Ecuador. It's actually a U.S. foundation, but I lived in Ecuador for 30 years. And I did my work down there, and we've helped hundreds of thousands of people through a digital platform. We've worked directly facilitating group spaces for 7,000 people over 7 years. And I took all of the knowledge that we gained working on the most extreme cases of violence against women as a foundation, and I pulled them into a product that you will hear about later that's called From Caterpillar to Butterfly. And I'm going to have a bit more to share about that, but It's a very innovative way, I believe, an innovative way to approach the issue of healing ourselves, whatever level of unhealthy or toxic relationship we've lived to, whether it's a little bit less or a little bit more dramatic. This can help. And that's why we're here, is to share this with the world. And I have a very big dream of helping a lot of women. And I'm so glad that you're here with me. Let's keep going. And now we're going to start out by talking about what is an unhealthy relationship. And there are lots of ways to define it. You can say it was bad, you can say it was toxic, you can say it was unhealthy. But basically, what we're talking about is any kind of relationship that makes us feel unloved, disrespected, neglected, mistreated, or even violated. Other ways to look at it is, are there expectations, behaviors, attitudes that make us feel small, that we have to play it small, that we are unworthy, that isolate us from family and friends? And I would like to propose also a sort of more general, any relationship that doesn't hold space, create a safe container for us to be the best version of ourselves, whether it is a romantic relationship or not. Now, we're going to be focusing on unhealthy romantic relationships, but I just wanted to say that all of these criteria really can apply to any kind of relationship. If this sounds familiar to you, I put that little exclamation point in the corner. This is a slight trigger warning. It could, we are going to talk about some of the things that make a relationship unhealthy. We're not going to go into big detail, but I think it's really important to shine some light on these issues. Because if we don't do that, if we don't name them, if we don't start to recognize them, because the world has normalized them at so many levels, because we as women and as individuals have normalized them at so many levels, if we don't name them, we can't see it. So I promise we're not going to spend a huge amount of time on this. We're going to try to move through it. But I think it's really important to at least share a little bit about this issue. So I want to go into what the most common unhealthy behaviors are. I've chosen 15. According to my perspective, this would be a from least to most, but this is not an absolute. It's relative terms, because any one of these behaviors, if we are living them in our relationship, they hurt, right? Aretha sang her RESPECT song. We all remember it. And that basic lack of respect started an entire movement in the 1970s of women who wanted to be seen and treated differently. So when I put it at number one as the supposedly mildest version of unhealthy behavior, please understand that I am well aware that that is the basis for all the other ones, and that it is in and of itself sufficient to have a relationship be considered unhealthy. So as we look through these behaviors, and Nancy, if you could please put in the chat, there's a link to a Knowledge is Power series that I did last year, also for Valentine's Day. It's on YouTube, and you can dive in a little bit more if you would like. But if we take a look, you're going to see that all of these 15 behaviors are not good for us. Who wants to feel disrespected in a relationship, or manipulated, or criticized constantly? Some of the other ones can be a little surprising, perhaps. If you're feeling drained, or if you see that the behavior, on the one hand, we're getting love bombed, and on the other hand, we're getting yelled at, and we have to walk on our tiptoes, constant uncertainty. All of these things are signs that something isn't right. We should be feeling peace with our romantic partner. If we're not, these are signs. Now, again, we all have bad days, right? We do, they do, everybody does. So, if one day there's a criticism, or one day, instead of giving you a hand, let's say that you have a more traditional relationship, and the woman is doing most of the housework in the kitchen, and she's tired or she's sick and the husband doesn't help out. If that happens one day, it can happen, right? And we could give lots of other examples. That's sort of a common one. But if the lack of empathy is permanent, if we are constantly being asked to accept blame for things that we didn't do, that he did, if all of that isn't working in your favor in the relationship, these are things that we need to be looking at. When we start getting into, let's say, number 9, number 10, where we feel like we don't even know ourselves, like we feel isolated, we're not supposed to go speak to our family and friends, we start wondering, I don't even know who I am anymore, what I like to do, what makes me happy. This is this is already getting a little bit deeper into an uncomfortable space in the relationship. And then if we look at number 11 through number 15, we are then working into the areas that are really big red flags, right? If there is intense jealousy, if he's constantly looking over your shoulder, trying to read your cell phone, trying to find out where it is that you are at every single moment of the day, tries to keep you under lock and key. If you say no and that boundary is crossed, and we'll talk more about boundaries in a minute. If you don't control the money in the relationship at all, and you are being given little bit by little bit, some of the people we worked with in my foundation would be given just enough to get on the bus and go and come back. And that was very, very complex. And it's in a different cultural reality, but nevertheless, it's a sign of something much more severe. And if we're going to be talking, in addition to that, about anything that resembles explosive anger or that you feel fear towards your partner, these are the kind of signs that would mean that you would need very significant help and sooner, much sooner rather than later. We want to keep everybody safe. So if any of these more severe or dramatic unhealthy behaviors are happening in your life, I do invite you to look for help at whatever type of hotline that you can reach out to, or a therapist or a lawyer. Go look for help. Don't wait until it's too late. But again, we are not only focusing on those behaviors; those are the more extreme ones. And the other ones, even if they are perhaps a little bit less extreme, they can be absolutely damaging to who we are, to who we want to be. And they can leave us not able to know who we are anymore and not able to feel joy. So I'm asking a question just for you to reflect on. Are you even aware of what is causing you pain, or what did cause you pain if you're already out of a relationship and you are still hurting from it? So we will move past this for a moment, and I would like to just leave you with this little quote of mine saying that the more we internalize the deafening sound of our partner's voice in our already confused minds, the harder it becomes to hear the silenced voice of our true knowing. Now, what do I mean by this? I mean that at some point when there has been enough of an unhealthy relationship, enough criticism, enough disrespect, enough loss of identity, we find it very hard in our mind to hear ourselves, to know who we are, to know what we want, and to figure out what we would like to do with our lives. We get very confused. We get absorbed into our partner, and then their voice is what echoes in our head. And sometimes this combines with other voices from our childhood. There's all different ways that we can be feeling or hearing these voices, right? But there's a reason that I'm going to, as we go on, explain why I think it's important to get out of our minds. There are places that we can go, spiritually speaking, to be able to really hear that true knowing. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. So now I want us to dig in. I hope everybody brought some kind of a pen, some kind of a pad of paper, or I don't know, Nancy, did you manage to find the love letter PDF?
Unfortunately, no, I don't have the correct link in what you sent me before.
Uh-huh. Okay, let me just real quick check where that is, because you should have it. Give me 1 second, please. Because I would really love for everybody to have that. Hang on a second.
I put in the chat that we could send it afterwards if we didn't get it in time.
We can, and maybe I can find it just really quickly. And we will be able to send it through the chat in that case. And I also see that Jennifer's come in and Tammy has come in, and welcome. Who else? We have Gail. Hello. Nice to have you here. A minute. Sometimes we have these things happen. I'm going to put this in the chat.
Jennifer says she's here until 2 Pacific and she'll catch the rest on the recording. So she's going to be incomplete today.
Welcome.
But thanks for showing up the bit that you were able to.
Absolutely. I'm thrilled to see you here, Jen. And there I have sent everybody the love letter to me. Can everybody see that in the chat? Everybody good?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
wonderful. Terrific. Okay, so we will keep going. So right now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a hard but loving look in the mirror. And this is going to be perhaps a tough thing for us to do because as a society, we're used to just um, putting things under the bed, so to speak, hiding it under the blankets. We don't want to look at things. But when we think about our unhealthy relationships, and especially after we've gone through that list of, of the most common unhealthy behaviors, I would like to invite all of us to fill out very briefly a few of the sections in the letter. And this is the beginning part. And we're going to take a look. If we printed it, we're going to have it on page 1 here up at the top. We're going to be starting, and if not, you can just write down the answers on whatever piece of paper you brought with you or on your computer. You can type it out. We're going to give you a couple of minutes unless anybody has questions. The idea here, as part of this workshop, is just whatever you come up with spontaneously. I don't want you to take a huge amount of time to dig crazily into this, just whatever comes up with you. You know, I'm going to say, I've wanted to write you for so long, dear me, right? I've wanted to write to you for so long, but I wasn't quite sure what to say or how to say it because I've been feeling so, and answer that question. It could be just 2 or 3 words. How have you been feeling? I'd like to start with that. I don't have anybody on screen, so I'd like to know if everybody is hearing me okay.
I hear you fine.
Okay, good. Okay. So I will just remain silent for a little bit so you have a chance to write that down. And we'll move on to the second question. Okay, has everybody written down an answer to that first part? So we move on to the second question. Can I get a thumbs up? Something? There we go. Okay, Tammy said yes. Thank you, Tammy. Appreciate it. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the second question. And the second question is, here we go. I guess that all of these intense emotions, the one that weighs the most on me is, let's try to pick just one because it can feel really, really big when we've been in this kind of relationship, and even more so if we're in it right now, perhaps. Um, what are we feeling the most? And you're welcome to write something in the chat if you would like. Then we're going to move on to page 2. And again, all of this you have absolutely, the opportunity to do this later on if you want to do it tonight, maybe think a little bit more about it. But I wanted to at least hold some space here for you to do it in a very loving way, right? And I'm hoping that everybody's going to be kind to themselves. Please be kind to yourself because it's so easy to hit ourselves over the head with these things and to question, why did I do this? How did it happen? It's very common. I've lived it too, so I know how that feels. So now I would like to just move on to the very last question. We've already written down the emotion that weighed the most on us, and I would like to know if from one of those 15 common behaviors and attitudes, or perhaps something else that I didn't list, can you list what hurts or hurt you the most in terms of your unhealthy relationship? give you another quick minute to do this. And again, we don't want to judge it, right? Just want to allow it to come through us to say, this is what really hurt me the most. Everybody had a chance to work through this section? Feel free to turn on your mic and say yes, or give me a thumbs up, or whatever. Turn on your camera, give me a thumbs up. Nancy, I think everybody is feeling very inspired to write, and that's a good thing.
Lisa, can you reshare the list? Because this is you're asking to pick behaviors and emotions, right? And I don't remember them all, so.
Of course, let me. Yes, and I have to figure out how to get that without messing up my Zoom. Hang on a second. You know what
You
I'll
should
do?
be able to click
Go
on the left
backwards.
side of the screen to go backwards.
I'm just going to go backwards. Yep. That's what we're going to do. There you go. Does that help, Katie? Okay. Thank you for asking. Okay, are we ready to advance? Because we have a lot of wonderful stuff to fill in on our love letter to ourselves. Are we good? Katie, are you good? Jen's good. Oh, you can put as many as you want. You can put as many as you want, Katie. And I would like you to just also sort of circle the one that's the most, if there is one. And this is just for you. It's not for me. It's not for anybody else. Are we good to go? Everybody ready? Jen's ready. Tammy, Gail, Katie, how are you doing?
They can always go back and work on it some more. I want to be responsible for time.
Thank you. I agree. Okay. So we're going to skip back to where we were. Oops. One, two, five. So now we're going to talk about how to stop those unhealthy behaviors. And I think that's really what we all want. It's the first step towards being able to love ourselves, is to stop being treated in a way that we don't like. And that's what we're going to look at right now, is how to stop those those unhealthy behaviors in their tracks. And that's where we're going to start talking about boundaries. And boundaries are an art. I don't think it's actually a science. I mean, there are certain scientific things that are suggested, but setting a boundary, saying stop, it's the first step towards loving you. And it's something that we generally need practice at. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do. Hasn't been for me at any rate. So let's talk about what a boundary is. Now, a boundary is an interpersonal limit shaped by our personality, our culture, and our context. That means it's not the same for everyone. It's not the same in our friend relationships, in our work relationships, and it's not the same in our relationships, right? In our romantic relationships. Now, healthy boundaries require a lot of self-awareness, and we'll talk about that in a minute. They require clear communication, And we hope that they also include a really healthy dose of respect for yourself and for the other. And the whole point of them is to ensure balance and trust in any kind of relationships that you have with anyone. And this is something that's talked about a lot in the area of positive psychology. So if we now move on and we say, okay, I'm ready to hold a boundary, I think, well, I still have to figure out a little bit what my boundary is, but I somehow already know that it's really hard. And why is it hard? Because a boundary is, in some ways, it's tough love for yourself as well as for the other person. It's saying, okay, this is my safe space, and I'm not going to let anybody breach that space. I'm going to strengthen myself. And that's not always so easy, right? A lot of times it dredges up the past. So you can start feeling guilty or nostalgic or regretful. It can be scary. It can remind you of different issues that trigger you, neglect and abandonment from your childhood. It can be lonely, especially if you need to go no contact, which is the case in a lot of relationships that are with narcissists, with people who everything that you give them, they will turn against you. And we're not necessarily even talking about full-blown diagnosed narcissists, but people that could be on the spectrum of narcissism. It also often puts us in unfamiliar territory, very shaky ground, especially if you're used to being a people pleaser. And again, that's very often common in different types of unhealthy relationships where one person holds a lot of control and the other person tries to people please. And this ends up becoming a downwards spiral. And it can happen also, we can decide we're going to set a boundary out of anger if something happens that really just, it was the last straw that broke the camel's back, right? But then we have to see how we can, get hold of our emotions in a way that we can set the boundary in a way that is healthy. And I always, and because of this experience that I've had working with some of the most extreme cases, I'm always going to be careful and give a warning and say, if it's ever dangerous for you to hold a boundary, get some help, right? Get some help, get some professional assistance before you make any moves that could be a problem for you, okay? And in the end, basically, this is a period of transformation when you set a boundary. It's hard. Like I said, it can be lonely, it can be difficult. So you're accepting your responsibility, and that's amazing. And I also want you to give yourself some grace because learning how to do that, just that one thing of holding a boundary, can be one of the hardest things you'll ever do. And to keep holding it can feel like you're in a space of darkness. And it has to be there until you can see the light that you're looking for. So this is some encouraging words, even though I know that it can be very, very hard. A lot of what we need to do in order to create that boundary is to know clearly who we are, what we want, and what we're willing to risk to get it. I've heard stories of women who have walked out with 5 kids and absolutely nothing else because it was better than staying in the situation they were in. I've heard of people who have had relationships with alcoholics, and there was no way to get the person off the alcohol. And again, they had to walk out, and it was their price of freedom. I've heard other people who are willing to walk out at the first sign of disrespect. Maybe they've been through it before, and they won't go through it again. So it really depends on what stage you are at in terms of your growth, what's going on in the relationship, and if you are willing or not to keep settling, and if you are willing to take responsibility. Because anytime you place a boundary, please understand that this is going to be, it's going to be a space with consequences, right? Something is going to happen as a result of placing the boundary. Now, one of the things that's really important to know is that as you create these boundaries, and I'm putting up here some useful phrases for setting boundaries that we can go through. But I want to make sure that we also realize that when we set a boundary, by saying one of these things, I'm not comfortable with this, I'd rather not, please do not, I can't do that for you. As soon as we set that boundary, we are putting ourselves in a position of discovering what we mean to that person, right? Because if we mean something to that person, they may push back. They may get angry for a while. They may decide that they don't like it and they might come back with a different proposal. A lot of things can happen. If they're not willing to engage with you at all, if there's a full-blown anger and then they disappear, that means that probably they're not meant to be in your life anymore. And that can be very, very hard to face. But that is a clear sign that our relationship is in trouble. And at some level, I believe, I personally believe that it needed to end and it will be better for us. But when people do that, just remember that, if you set a boundary and then they ghost you, if you set a boundary, you get silent treatment. That's not a healthy behavior. Please don't explain away for them that they did that. Oh, he must have been thinking this, or he must have been, no, no. I'll hold a boundary for you and say that's not how it's meant to be, right? So if these phrases are useful, we can copy them later and share them. It's very important to find the way to say it, because in the end, what we hope to do, hopefully, is we're going to try to create a healthy boundary. And what is a healthy boundary? It's firm, it's assertive, it's respectful, but it's still emotionally available. It's going in and saying, I love you and I need this. And this is important to me, and I want to figure out a way to make us both happy. And setting that kind of boundary actually creates greater connection, because now the other person knows where you stand. And it gives a possibility of mutual support, effort, and energy to become normal. It makes it safe for us to start growing and hopefully providing space for the other to start growing. So this is what boundaries can be in the best of circumstances. We all know it's not necessarily the way that it works out. So to finish up with this topic, I would like to talk about how you create your personal boundaries. And the first step would be to know your limit. Who are you? What do you want? Define that boundary, communicate it, keep the communication as simple as possible so that there's clarity on the other person's side. And then again, we're going to weigh, set, and stick to the consequences. And that can really be the hardest part. So now we're going to get back to our love letter. And we're going to go to page, if you have managed to download it. And if not, we'll just do it on our pad of paper and we can fill this out later. And we're saying, I am no longer, this is going to be page 2. And we're going to say, I commit to loving myself by holding a firm boundary around whatever behavior we decided in the last moment that we were filling out our letters. It was the one that bothered us most. Now, if there's a bunch of them, you can say it's a bunch. Again, we want to be really clear in communicating our boundary. So we have a space. I will no longer allow whichever person to do, say, or act this way towards me. Let's put maybe a sentence in. Does everybody have a sentence up yet? Represent what behavior they want to have stop now. And then we're going to move on to the next section, and I will put up some of these phrases. We're going to say, I'm going to make my needs known by saying, what am I going to say? Maybe we can use one of these useful phrases for setting boundaries as a starting point. Maybe we can say, please do not, I'd rather not, I'm drawing the line at. You ready to move on? And the final thing in this section of the letter is to say, if my needs are not respected, what are the consequences going to be? If you don't respect my need, what am I willing to do? What am I willing to accept in my life? And again, this can be tough. And I know it can be tough. Now, I'd like to ask you, maybe you can put something in the chat. How do you feel about holding a boundary all by yourself? Like if you were to go today to speak to the person who has been upsetting you so much and say, I'm not comfortable with this. This needs to stop right now. How easy would it be for you to do that? Now, let's say 0 is no problem and 10 is, oh my God, just so hard. Can you put a number in the chat so that I can have some idea how you're feeling about this right now? I'm looking at the chat. Oh, Tammy, it's hard for you. Okay, Katie, for you too. Mhm. Feels tiring. Yeah, it can be really, really tiring. And it happens at all ages. I've had a number of conversations over the last week of people. Um, no, 8 isn't easy. 10 is the hardest. You want to flip it over, Tammy? 10 is the hardest, 0 is the easiest. Then you're a 2. Well, then, gosh, you have a lot of inner strength to be able to do it, and good for you. That's awesome. Hopefully, you can help the rest of us, because it's not always easy. I've had conversations all week long with people of all different ages and all different um, places around the country. And I'm in the US, and so far, I think everyone is in the US. I don't know about Gail and Tammy. You haven't told me yet where you are. But all different people saying, oh my gosh, I want to hold a boundary. I don't like what's going on. US, great. But it can be very, very hard. So I'm going to skip to the next page. And I'm going to tell you that now, as we learned, you came in late, no worries. You're here right on time, Tammy, and you're in Florida. That's great. So you're East Coast time as well. So now we're going to talk about the fun part of the love letter, which is to say, I love me for real. Okay. And okay, Katie, you can keep thinking about it and we can talk about it at the questions and answers at the end, if that's okay, because I know some people are going to be scooting out soon. Let's try to get through a little more of the basic workshop. All right. So now we're going to talk a little bit about how we can step into a healthier relationship. And a healthier relationship has to start with ourselves first, right? If we don't have a healthy relationship with us, then it's very hard for us to have a healthy relationship with anybody else. So the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to be our own queen. I love this little graphic that I found. Just be your own queen. Treat yourself the way you want others to treat you. If you want to have somebody who takes you out to a nice dinner and out to theater, well, do it for yourself. If you think it's important to spend time on your health, to go to the doctor, to get massages, to go get your hair cut, to take time for a spiritual practice, whether it's yoga or going to church, that's really important. And do it for you and give yourself some grace in doing it. Because when we've been in unhealthy relationships, most of the time we take care of everybody except ourselves. So again, let's start here saying, I love me. And I want to invite you to type into the chat, I love me. And remember that this is the first thing that we need to do. And we also need to clean out some of the old stuff so that we can make space for the new. Nancy loves herself. I love you too, Nancy. This is awesome. So we need to make space for the new. And Gail loves herself. And Jennifer loves herself fully and completely and wholly. Yes, beautiful.
I love that.
I love that too. I might want to screenshot that one. And Katie loves herself, and Katie should love herself because we love you too. And I'm so glad that we're in this space together. And Tammy loves herself also. Tammy, I'm so happy that you're able to join us, and bring some more of that love to our space. And again, we are making space for ourselves and for a new kind of love, for new friends, for new wealth. There will be times where we place that boundary and some people step out of our lives. And it can be really painful at first. I've gone through this. I'm also divorced, and I lost my entire family because of my divorce. And it felt like I lost 2/3 of my soul, maybe even more when this happened. And yet, as time has gone on, I've realized that they were not meant to be here. They were not meant to be in my life. And the more I clean them out, it's just like, the feng shui principle where if you clean out your closet, you'll have room for better clothes. Or if you do some kind of spiritual cleansing, you'll have room for bigger and better emotions. And um, it's just a lovely thing. So I'm so glad to see that we all love ourselves. And I'm going to share with you also just a couple brief tools of positive psychology. When we can focus on our own growth, we keep developing our support networks, we start looking inside more, and we create a gratitude practice. And there's so many fun ways to do that. I share a lot more about that in my course. But there's a lot of ways that we can do it. And some of them are very, very simple. They don't have to cost a lot. It can be something as simple as journaling, right? That's a beautiful way to do it. And it's a challenging, but it's a rewarding journey. So now I'm going to give you 2 minutes because we're going to get into the fun part of our love letter, right? And we're going to go to the top of page 4, and it says, I love me. So I commit to these self-care and growth practices on a regular basis. So if you have, just like off the top of your head, something that you've been wanting to do for yourself and you keep making excuses maybe about why you can't do it, and maybe you don't have the money or you don't have the time or you got to take care of the kids, or that's impossible. We all have these excuses, right? But what can you commit to doing for yourself to take better care of you? How can you foster your growth? How can you feel like the queen that you are? And you are welcome to write it down on your love letter. You're also welcome to put it in the chat if you would like to share with the rest of us. One of the things that I did, just to share a little bit, yesterday I went out and celebrated Valentine's Day by myself, for myself. I went out and I had a delicious lunch. I went and I got my hair cut, which I've been wanting to do for a while now. And I went to a place. I live in Asheville, North Carolina, and there's some lovely places downtown where you can go and get a decadent treat. So I did that and wandered around. We had a beautiful day. So that's how I wanted to spend my Valentine's Day with me. What are you going to do for yourself to make yourself feel like a queen? Because in my mind, you already are one. And we all are. So we have Queen Nancy and Queen Jennifer, Queen Katie, Queen Tammy, Queen Gail. Nancy says you stopped getting your hair done quite a while ago and you miss your glamour hair. You look beautiful always, Nancy, and I understand wanting to get haircut. I absolutely understand that. Okay, I'm going to continue on. And Katie's going to buy herself flowers. So that's like the Miley Cyrus song, right? I can buy myself flowers, right? Right name in the sand. Okay, YouTube is going to bust me for that one. We know that, but that's okay. It's a great tune. It's a great tune. So now, what I'm going to ask you to do is think about, are you really ready to address unhealthy behaviors? And we're actually going to skip to page 5, the top of the page, and I'm going to invite you to write down an affirmation to yourself. And you can use this one, or you can use anything that is for you an affirmation about what you're going to do in order to stop these unhealthy behaviors, set your boundaries, and start making yourself feel like a queen. So if you want, You can write this one down or make up your own. Say, I'm ready. What are you ready for? Everybody got their affirmation written down? Yes, no?
I got one nod.
Okay, you got one nod.
If you feel comfortable, feel free to put them in the chat so we can celebrate and read and
Okay, Katie says she's
anchor
using
it.
mine. Uh-huh. That's great. Just writing it down is already a very, very powerful act, Katie. And I want to ask a question. We've affirmed, we're ready. We know that we love ourselves. Okay, Gail is using mine as well. If I ask you how easy you think it's going to be to make this real, and again, 0 is easy, 10 is hard. In real life, how easy and how hard, right? 0 is easy, 10 is hard. Jen loves herself more by taking the third day of each month off to celebrate Everything Me Day. Oh my gosh, that should be a national holiday. Everything Me Day. Make like,
Oh, I love
make
that.
like Hallmark cards for Everything Me Day. Okay, so Katie says Katie's ready. Katie's ready. She says it's not going to be too hard for her. Yeah, Gail loves it too. Okay, so you can put those numbers in if you want. We're going to keep going. And my question is, because not everybody finds it easy to do this. We talk about it, we say we will, but then we put the boundary, and then it's not so easy because we think we're still in love, or we don't know another way of being, or um, we're used to people pleasing. It's hard to hold the boundary. So, what I would like to share is a way that I have found to make the process easier and gentler. And the way that I do it is by using the arts. Now, I started out by telling you that I'm a vocalist. I also do some songwriting. Really, it's more like setting my poetry to music. I don't consider myself a composer per se, but I can create some pretty catchy melodies. And so for me, my arts are words, my arts are music. Other people like painting or sculpture or playing an instrument. There are people who consider the kitchen to be their artistic space. That is for me as well. Garden, crafting. There's so many. Nancy makes some beautiful thing, and that's her way of expressing herself. She has a terrific um, business making wonderful jewelry, and that's her space of expressing herself. So there's really no um, definition of the arts that doesn't count. It's wherever you feel creative. It's wherever you feel like you're able to bring out the best of you and find beauty and express whatever it is you need to express. And actually, the arts are humanity's oldest doctor. They're the oldest healing method that we as human beings have. Let's talk about, the old drum circles. Let's talk about cave paintings. Let's talk about storytelling. When we think about what children need when they're first born, of course, they need food and they need water and they need air and they need shelter and they need love. But one of the things that children need, that we all need, are stories. We are wired. Our DNA is wired for stories. We are wired for the arts. And it's my proposal to you that one of the easiest and gentlest and most fun ways to heal yourself after an unhealthy relationship is to do it through the arts. Now, we are doing a very simple and yet deep journaling exercise by writing this love letter to ourselves. Journaling is another way of doing it, singing. All of these things allow us to get into a space that I think is very healing. And I'm going to tell you why. Now, first of all, when we do art, Gail says she's a retired teacher. You could see children really bloom when we painted and moved our bodies. Absolutely. And one of the things I was going to talk about as an example of some of this is that sometimes our brain gets confused. Now, we're talking about it in the case of unhealthy relationships. And if you remember that quote I put up on the red slide towards the beginning, especially if we have our partner's voice in our head, we can get really confused. We can hear our partner, we can hear our parents, we can hear our religious leaders, we can hear the people on television, we can hear everybody except for us. But actually, if we go to our heart, and I'm going to substitute the word heart with gut, because our gut knows. Our gut knows. And music, for example, is so powerful. I'm going to use another case for this. Um, there are Alzheimer's patients who have to some extent lost the normal use of their brain due to the illness. And yet, if you put on music, they remember the words. They might not remember their name anymore, but they remember the words. They remember how to dance, right? When I speak with special education teachers in the public schools, working with kids that are on IEP plans in order to get help, what works the best with their special education students? It's music, it's art, it's colorful visuals. It's something about the arts allows us to discover and express our emotions more easily. And they also let us dig deep into our creativity. And when you find a creative solution in your art, that creativity can transfer to real life. And it helps you build resilience and reframe the story that you keep telling yourself. You know, we all have those stories. I've been in coaching sessions where they've said, you know, find somebody who also has a story that they need to reframe and just tell your story to that person until you get so tired of telling it that you just, neither one of you can stand it anymore, right? And then the other one does the same. And you can do that and you can iterate it over and over and over again. But what if you just paint it, right? And but if by painting it or dancing it or making a piece of jewelry, you can tell a story, and that's going to allow you to explore the identity that you want to have now. It's coming back to you and who you are now. And on top of it all, it's fun, right? And you can do it in community. They're finding that one of the most important ways for people to live longer, healthier lives is to get into art classes. And there's research all over the place. And again, I've found some of it. I keep looking for more. I know this deep in my heart. I think we all know it deep in our gut that we can use the arts to heal because we've been doing it as humanity forever. But there is research being done in, like I said, the most extreme domestic violence spaces, NGOs and foundations helping, and they know that art helps. And one of the reasons that I think it helps is that when you are making art, you become the creator. And by becoming the creator, where nobody can tell you what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do. You paint it red, you paint it blue. Do you sing a C? Do you sing an A? Do you sing a happy song? Do you sing a sad one? There's so many choices that we get to make. And yet in the arts, when we get to make those choices, maybe they don't overwhelm us so much because maybe we can just do it for fun. And that allows us to gain what I'm going to call agency, which is a sense of control over our lives, as well as this connection to the divine spark of creator that we all have in ourselves. And I'll say this in a very broad spiritual sense, whatever your belief system is, that's fine. And again, you know, when you go into the arts, it's your piece of artwork. I still remember my older son coming to me one day and offering to make something for me. And I walked in and said, "Oh, that's beautiful. It's done now." And he looked at me and he said, "Mom, I will tell you when it's done. I am the artist." He was 3 years old. So that tells you a little bit about my son, but it also tells you about the power of saying, this is my work of art. I get to choose. And this is how we're going to move forward, right? So I'm a very big believer in using the arts to heal. And what I would like to finally add in, and with this, we're going to go back to page 4, and we're going to talk a little bit about the value of community. And this is something that, again, age-old, millennium, we all know how important it is to have a village to raise a child, but how about that village to support us? And I believe that when we've been through unhealthy relationships, having a community of empowering women is really, really important. So when you think about going through this journey and saying, I'm going to figure out who I am, and I'm going to love myself more, and I'm going to place boundaries, and I'm going to keep holding those boundaries, who's going to accompany you on the journey? Who is going to guide you? And who will make sure that you are accountable to yourself? And I will also add, it's not on the slide, but it will be by tomorrow. I promise you that, because it's really important. Who's going to empower you? Who's going to keep saying, I believe in you, and you can do it, and I love you, and this is how it has to be? That little love factor, that's important because we can sometimes forget how valuable we are. So I'd like you to just write down really quickly on the bottom of page 4 or in your journal, who is your go-to group, your BFFs, your sister, your mother, your aunt? Who are the people that are going to accompany you? Who makes you feel safe? Happy Valentine's Day to you as well, Jennifer. We're almost done. Glad you could keep with us for so long. Thank you very much. Okay. Have you figured out who are the people you trust to accompany and guide you and keep you empowered? I am. Oh, Katie, I'm so happy. I'm honored. Thank you. You have no idea how happy I am that you're here. I value you and I value our friendship, and I'm thrilled you're doing this. Okay. Are we ready to finish up? Because we're getting close to the end. Okay, in honor of the time, I am going to keep going. And I would like to take a moment before we finish up our love letter to just share a little bit about what I have been working on. And this is the product of, at this point, 13 years of serving others. If you didn't come in at the beginning, through the foundation that I started and ran, I have personally facilitated groups for over 7,000 women in Ecuador, and also created a digital platform that's helped hundreds of thousands of women. And now that I'm living in the US again, I said to myself, how can I help build an incredible community of women that are going to be able to help themselves and help each other love more, love themselves more, love others more, regain their freedom, regain their joy, and really get deep down inside and say, I know who I am and what I want and what I need, and start making better decisions and end the unhealthy relationships, not just for themselves, but maybe even for their kids, right? And so I created From Caterpillar to Butterfly. And this is a digital course and it is self-paced. There's 5 pre-recorded modules and it allows you to go deeper into what we've done today. It also tries to inspire your journey. It uses my music. That's what you'll hear, a song called No More that I wrote. It's in module 1 and it's a way to help you have your own muse, and it'll help you open your eyes so that you can place that boundary and say no more. We will go through 5 different modules. It's self-paced. You can do it when you feel safe, when you feel brave. There are moments, certain modules that, like we talked about at the beginning of this, could feel a little bit upsetting, a little triggering. So I've included a couple of bonus modules. One's an EFT tapping session. It's an incredibly powerful methodology. If you've never done EFT tapping, it has absolutely saved my life. It's an incredible, incredible thing. And we also have a private Facebook community because I know really well how important it is to have that incredible cocoon, that space where you can transform, knowing you are being held, knowing you are being loved. This is something that is really what allowed me to heal, is knowing that I had these wonderful, powerful women holding space for me, creating a safe container. And so I really wanted to find a way to replicate it in the online world. And because I know that a lot of people who have been going through this type of unhealthy relationship need some help. They may already be getting other help, maybe a more traditional faith-based counseling or a CBT type counseling. There's so many different ways that people work on issues. I wanted to create a product that could get to 1 million women. That's my big dream. And in line with the work that I have done also as a foundation director, I wanted to make sure that we could get help to people at an affordable price. And so I have priced this course, these 5 modules, these 2 bonus modules, the community, at just $97, which I think is incredibly value packed for this cost. And even more so, right now, I am just starting to get this party going. And so I am inviting everyone who comes to this Love Letter to Me workshop the special opportunity to be a first butterfly. And the whole purpose of doing this is I want to make sure that as women come in individually, that cocoon, that private Facebook community is our safe space, and we all know how to empower each other, how to lift each other up. And so I wanted to make sure that there was a small group of first butterflies ready to welcome the rest of the tribe. And in exchange for being part of this initial launch, and also giving me some feedback so that I can improve the course and make sure it's even better for the next women who come through. We will be having a kickoff call on Monday, and then we're going to be 6 weeks later. The course takes about one module per week. So 6 weeks later, we're going to get back together for one live Zoom call with me. It's going to be a focus group. It's going to be a lot more interaction than perhaps what today has been. And I'm hoping that whoever goes through the course will have loved it, will feel that they are a different woman, a better woman, a happier woman, a more joyful woman after going through it. And that you would be willing to offer me a testimonial. And in exchange for helping me out as a first butterfly, I am offering you a 50% thank you discount. And that means the course is just $48.50. And there is a beta code that you can use. Nancy already dropped in the chat the link to sign up for the course. And the beta code, beta 24, actually it should not have a space. It should just be beta 24 straight through. If you put that code in, I have availability for the first 13 women. And this code will stop functioning at noon on Monday. So if this is something you are considering, this is what we have available right now. I would be honored to hold space for you in that community. And again, no pressure. I'm thrilled you came today. I want to sort of sign off with a very last question. And this is what I would like for us to put on. This is going to be on page 5 of our love letter. And it's going to have to be, I'm apologizing for that. My computer evidently is not as shut off as my phone is. So this is, in 1 year, who am I going to be? And it is my hope that you will be a butterfly, and a really, really colorful one. And that's the whole purpose of doing this work, for yourself. I would be honored to be your guide, to be empowering you, to be accompanying you. And I would love for you to write down in the chat as our sort of our final little exercise together. In 1 year, who will you be? And I'll give you a minute for that. And then we can do some questions from anybody who has questions. Anybody want to share who you think you're going to be in 1 year from now? You think you're going to be the same in a year? Or after that affirmation you made? Gail says she's going to be an amazing butterfly. Love it. Absolutely. We all are. Who else? Anybody else want to tell me how you're going to be and who are you going to be in 1 year? Confident, beautiful Nancy Blue butterfly. Yeah.
I'm trying to pick which butterfly. They're all really pretty. I don't know which color. I'm going to be multicolored. I don't know.
Yeah, I can sort of see you as being this multicolored one, Katie.
Yeah. It's got lots of pink in it. I like pink, so that's all good.
And since you're creating, you get to create what color butterfly you want to be.
There you go. Well, that was my question I was going to say though. I had to dig up because I'm like, okay, I'm not artistic, so pens and pencils, I don't have those really, but my daughter does. So I went through her stuff to find all these colored Sharpies, but what were we supposed to do with the colored pens or pencils? Or was that the idea to write the love letter in the colored pencils?
You can write it in the colored pencil. And if you want to say who you're going to be and you want to be a beautiful butterfly,
Oh,
well, you don't have to write words. It's your love letter. Feel
oh,
free to draw yourself. Feel free to draw a butterfly. Feel free to draw smiley faces. Feel free to draw squiggles. Whatever makes you happy. You are the creator.
okay. But I guess I was just wondering where the art comes in, but the art comes in to just,
Well, the art will definitely come in the course because
of
in
course.
every single module, and I will now sort of skip over to our questions and answers. So certainly, if you decide to sign up for the course, and Katie, I know you're in it, you will have the opportunity to actually make art. In this case, the self-expression that we did is basically journaling, right? We wrote a love letter, and feel free to mark up every single page, to flip over the back and see what think about it. The other thing that I will invite you to do as a way to seal your decision to love yourself more is to, once you're done, take this love letter, however you've decorated it, whatever you have written in it, put it in an envelope and mail it to yourself. And if you don't want to, waste money on the postage stamp, so to speak, you can just seal it and put it somewhere in your jewelry box, in your closet, in a shoe box, put a date on it, and come back to it next year and see where you are because you are making a choice. And every time that we self express and then we seal our choice that we have expressed, it's a very powerful way to change. It's a very powerful way to change. And that is the concept that we're going to be working with in From Caterpillar to Butterfly, right? Is getting those emotions that are weighing on us out of us, let them be onto paper, onto a canvas, onto clay, into a note. I know that you sing, Katie, with me. So there's all different ways that you can self-express. Even if it's just making a little craft, right? That's fine too. Any way that you feel comfortable. So that's what we're doing with the colored pencils. We're writing our love letter, we're decorating our love letter. Now, I am absolutely convinced that there are energy types that don't doodle so much. That would be me. But there are people who love to just, create all sorts of mandalas or squiggles or beautiful drawings all over. And nobody's judging. These artworks are for you and you only. They are expressive. We're not looking for the end goal. We're looking for the process. Right?
Forgot my, oh, you can't see them though. Oh.
What is it?
My
It's the headband with
Sharpies
the
I was
hearts on
gonna
them.
wear for the workshop, but you can't see it because of my background. I'd have to turn my background off. Did you see? They're little, they're little hearts.
How fun.
It's a
Okay,
little.
well, I love that you brought your hearts for the workshop.
There you go. I'm wearing my hearts.
We are finishing the workshop. And at this point, I would like to know if anybody has any questions, anything I can answer while
Well,
I'm
we
here.
can go back to Katie's question before about the consequences.
Okay. Remind me of
Oh,
the,
well, yeah. Well, I'll because so we don't have a list, and I guess you just make them up. But I guess the point is, I mean, I feel like I already did the consequences. The divorce has happened, so that was the consequence. It's like, well, although, whatever, even though it wasn't my choice to have the divorce. The point is, that's not going to happen anymore with that person because that person is no longer really going to, I mean, that's not totally true because he's still going to be part of my life in some way because of my kids.
Mhm.
But so what would you say there? Like, I don't know, I should just have those boundaries in general for any, I did write somewhere like, I will no longer allow him, although, like I said, I wouldn't imagine that's going to happen anymore. But I put, or in parentheses, or any man, treat me without respect, right?
Amen.
Because you
Amen.
hear about that all the time, how women get involved with another relationship and the same thing happens all over again. And you're like, what? Like, how did that
But
happen?
again, it does happen, and that's actually the most common. It happens within the relationship, and then it happens over and over and over again with different partners if we don't work on ourselves. If we don't
Mhm.
know who we are, if we don't know what we want, if we don't set a limit, and yes, clearly a divorce is a huge consequence, Katie, clearly. And those of us who have been through them know how difficult they are. And for better or for worse, and it can go either way. When you are still in a relationship with him to the extent that he is the father of your children, right? So there will come events where you need to do things. There will be perhaps a legal, a financial something. There will be an interaction at the front door. There will be things that happen. And the question is, can you hold a boundary? And I'll give a simple example. Let's say that now that you're divorced, you don't want him to come into your home when he picks up your kids to do something. And I'm making this up. I don't know your case, but I've heard this so many times, right? So you say you may pick up the kids outside because you want your home to remain your safe space. You don't want his energy in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then one day he disrespects that boundary and he just barges in through the front door. Again, I'm making this up, right? He just crossed your boundary. What is the consequence? Right? So boundaries can be things that
Yeah,
are
so can you give me examples of consequences? Because I feel like that was always my problem with being a parent too. Like, okay, well, what are your oh, your kids did this? Well, what were the consequences? And I'm like, yeah, I didn't really have any. They walk all over me.
Well, okay, so in this particular example, and I've got to think about it a little bit, right? But for example, and I'll use a parenting example as well. So there's consequence and there's punishment, right? So punishment is generally not the healthiest boundary and it can have bad fallout. So let's say something like, and again, I'm making it up. A punishment would be saying, assuming that he has a good relationship with your kids and that they want to see him, would be saying something like, you can never see the kids again because you don't obey my rules. Right? So that would be punishing him and it would be punishing your kids. Right? A consequence is, in a parenting sense and in this boundary holding sense, it's going to be in line with what happened. And so the consequence could be, I don't know, the door will remain locked until the children walk outside. As a consequence, I'm not ever going to let you back into my space and you will never be allowed to step foot past this boundary. It's a physical boundary, right? And I'm just making this up as I go, and I'm sure over time we'll all come up with better examples, right? But if you're, let me give an example of a consequence versus punishment in child raising. If your child lied to you about something and the rule in the house was you're not allowed to lie and they lied, and that lying caused damage to somebody. Oh, yes, I took the dog for the neighbor's dog for a walk like I committed I would do. I don't know. I'm just making it up. Okay. And so you say, they come in and they say, yes, I took the dog for a walk, but it turns out they didn't. And so the dog peed all over the floor in the neighbor's house and they were in charge of it. Right. So a punishment would be to say, well, because you lied to me and you didn't do what you were supposed to do, you can't watch television for the next week or have your phone for the next week. That's a punishment. A consequence would be, oh, you didn't do what you were supposed to do. The consequence is that now you're going to go in and you're going to clean up that mess and you're going to mop the whole floor in the whole area. And you're going to write a letter saying you're sorry to the neighbor that you did not meet your obligations. Can you see how they're different? They're aligned separate. They're differently aligned. One is a punishment, but it's not directly connected. A consequence takes into account how the person, how somebody was affected by it directly. So if you didn't walk the dog and there's a big mess, now you have to clean it up. Somebody's not going to clean it up for you and I take your television privileges away. That's not aligned. That's punishment. But a consequence is you didn't do your job. No problem. This is how it is. And you get fired as a dog walker, as Tammy says. Right. That's right. And it is. You can't control anyone, but it is what you do. If they do this, you do that. So I find it sometimes easier to give, like off the cuff, to give an example of child rearing because I've done a lot of that. But it happens in all these other things as well. Right? If you're not able to speak to me properly, then we won't speak for a little while. Not full out ghosting forever. I'll still talk to you. I'll still chat with you about whatever we need to do with our children. But since these, direct interactions aren't working, well, then we simply can't speak and we'll have to go to emails, or we'll have to do it through the lawyers, and that's going to cost you more money. Or you could speak to me properly, and then we won't have to spend the money. Is any of this making sense? Any of it landing? Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah? Does that help? Yeah, great. Anybody else have questions? Well, Katie, do you have more questions? You have questions about what we went through today, about your own feelings? Do you have questions about the course, about this opportunity until Monday? Anybody interested in asking questions about any of that? I'm here. Oh, yay! Gail, I'm so happy. Welcome. Welcome. That's wonderful. Please make sure to sign up for the Facebook group as soon as you can, because I will be making some announcements there for the Monday kickoff call. That's so exciting. We have a new butterfly coming. So happy. Got butterflies. Butterflies and hearts. What a lovely day for Valentine's. Butterflies and hearts.
Absolutely.
In honor of everybody's time, I don't want to keep you on much longer. If there are no more questions, I
Oh, I
can.
just had one last question with the technical part of it. So that PDF, yeah, that's just to print. You can't actually type on it. I tried to type on it.
I
I
was
couldn't.
not I was not technically adept enough to make it so that you could type.
Yeah.
I do apologize, but I will also say that there is something. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you for joining us. Um, there is something beautiful about writing it by hand. And I know I am also guilty of typing absolutely everything because I have miserable handwriting, and nobody can ever read it, including me. But the truth of the matter is, if we write it by hand, just like kids, when they write things by hand, it sort of goes in the brain better. There is
Mm.
something also about writing this by hand. And it also gives you the opportunity to paint on it and draw and color and underline and make hearts or whatever would make you happy, right?
Yes, you might want to send it out tomorrow with the link so people have it in advance. Because even though I got it, I wouldn't have, to print it out. I mean, I could have maybe, but um, yeah. So
I
I didn't have
appreciate
it.
that. And I thought
I-
about it and I didn't want to give away what we were going to do, but I will.
Oh, that's true. No, I see what you're saying. I didn't, yeah. It's
So,
just
so
that then,
yes, there was a question of logistics and showmanship. And as I said, I am a
Mhm.
vocalist. As you well know, we like to have our shows. And so I kind of like people to have to wait and see what I'm going to be sharing with
And
them.
you could put it in the Facebook group one and put it in files so that it will always be easily accessible. So once people join, they've already seen and then they can get it. And I totally agree with Lisa about the power of writing it. And if you are uh, hardcore, really wanting to type it instead of writing it, there are tools, if not Adobe Acrobat. You can also use it's DocuHub or DocHub is I think a Google app that's free, and then you can highlight the area and type in for any PDF that's not writable.
Yeah, you're always great at this kind of stuff, Nancy. Thank you. Well,
Thank you.
okay. So I want to say thank you to Nancy Abramson for helping out. It's terrific. Thank you so much.
My
Wonderful
pleasure.
room captain and great professional and dear friend. Katie, I am thrilled you're here. I hope you have found this to be a great exercise. I love that everybody else was here. Gail, before we sign off, do you have any other questions? I think you're still there.
I hear. I was. No, I feel. I just really and I enjoyed everything. So, thank you so much. And everything was very clear the way we put it. So that makes sense. Everything that you showed us was easy to follow.
I'm very, very glad, and
Thank you.
I'm thrilled that you have decided to join, and I hope that the course is just as clear for you and just as heartwarming and that you feel held in the cocoon. And
Well, you
I'm
all seem
happy.
very, I just like all your energy. So everybody's energy. So great.
Thank you. Yeah, well, we try to have good people around us. That's part of this, right? Is to take the people out of our lives
Yes.
who aren't good energy and bring into
Yes.
our lives the people who are good for us. And
Hmm.
no judgments. I'm not saying anyone is necessarily bad, but we know who's good for us, and we do actually know it. And the more we dive into it this way, I think it will be clearer who should be in your life and who should not. And we're going to clean stuff out and make space for that butterfly that you see on the screen right now to show up. And that's what we want to see happen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Katie asked what time the call on Monday is happening.
We're going to do it 4 o'clock Eastern time. And it's really just a get together and saying thank you. And we're going to just set the date for 6 weeks later, because in the end, this is a self-paced digital course. And I want you all to live it as it was designed so that you can give me feedback as it was designed. If at some point later on people want to start having more personal or group coaching sessions, things like that, we can talk about that. But right now, the idea is to live the course as it is designed, as a self-paced digital course. So we will just have that opening call. If you can't make it for some reason, I put it in the Facebook group today or yesterday, Katie. If you cannot make it, there will be a replay. I will put it up. It's going to be very brief. I just want to say hello to everyone, tell you what we're doing. Thank you all for being part of this first Butterflies group. And then you'll be off on your own, doing it whenever you want to, whenever the muse strikes, whenever you feel safe and brave and you have the time to do it, and to get your materials ready and do it however you want to do it. So that's all we're doing on Monday. It's going to be a brief call, much shorter than this one, probably no more than half an hour at most. And then we won't meet again for another 6 weeks. Which is when we will set up our time to do a recap and a bit of a focus group, so that everybody can give me some feedback and we can keep making this better and keep metamorphosizing. Is that a verb? Can you say that? Keep metamorphosizing the offer so that it helps in the best way possible for everybody. Okay. So any other questions? Okay, Katie's good. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Nancy. And have a wonderful, happy, healthy, loving Valentine's Day. Thanks.
Thank you.
Happy Valentine's Day.